Hey, this is CD Channel. I'm Chris, and this is an MMA discussion about the matchup and coaching positions regarding Jon Jones and Chael Sonnen. It was just announced pretty recently that for this upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter, Jon Jones will coach against Chael Sonnen, and they will eventually fight around April. Obviously, it got a lot of criticism from fans and media alike. Here I'll probably talk about some of the media that really, I guess, they're kind of condescending towards the fans in regard to the criticism towards this matchup. And personally, I feel the criticism towards this matchup, which is negative, is more than justified. But I'll definitely look into what a lot of journalists are saying. Dana White's reasoning for this was because other contenders previously turned down the fight, and the timing of Sonnen and Jones worked out. Sonnen was getting this opportunity because he was the only guy who stepped up to fight Jon when the fight was offered previously. That previous time being on 8 days' notice at UFC 151. For one, that's not actually true. If I'm not mistaken, Chris Weidman stepped up to fight Jon Jones during that time as well. The other thing is that this idea that contenders turn down the fight and therefore they can't get the fight, I find that really, I guess, confusing. Like, quite honestly, I don't really, I want to see Dan Henderson fight Jon Jones, even though I think Dan Henderson's going to lose. I think he deserves it, though. I mean, he don't beat, Babalu, Fejao, Fedor, and Shogun in, a fight of the year. He definitely deserves it. And that's the point of contention here, especially with Sonnen. He doesn't deserve it. He's coming off a loss to Anderson Silva. He's not a former champion or anyone that truly deserves this. And he last fought at 205 around 2005 or 2006, something like that. I think he lost too. That's where the point of contention comes. And like I said, it's pretty much justified. I don't think anyone can really say that in any way that Sonnen really deserves the fight or to fight for the title. There are other options. Like I said, Dan Henderson. I know that Shogun's going to fight Alexander Gustafsson, especially if Alexander Gustafsson wins. I think that most MMA fans will feel that Gustafsson will have deserved a title shot. You could give it to Machida just because he was promised the title shot at the previous UFC on Fox as well. And then Glover Teixeira, he's coming up. He can get one more fight from now to April, and he could realistically be a deserving and legit contender here. So it's not like there aren't many options. Obviously, though, they want to, part of this arrangement is that they want to save The Ultimate Fighter. With Chael Sonnen working with being up against one of the biggest stars in Jon Jones, Sonnen having the mouth, you can definitely save the show. The show isn't doing very well right now. Ratings keep going under decline. Right now it's on Friday. It'll go in a new time slot when this upcoming season happens. And, Sonnen, he's an entertaining guy, so I get what they're trying to do. I kind of hate that Dana White is kind of masking what they're really trying to do, but it's promoter speak. I get it. Okay, I mean, he's not gonna incriminate the UFC or himself, if it doesn't suit his purpose. I mean, that's what he does. He's a promoter. He's done it before, so I get it. That doesn't mean that he's immune to criticism because of that. Obviously, his reasoning for this fight really isn't very logical. Speaking of The Ultimate Fighter, though, new time slot, cool. New coaches, cool. But it's the same thing. I mean, you get a bunch of guys who generally aren't UFC quality, who do pranks in the house. You see them train, and you see a fight at the end of the show. We've seen it for 16, 17 seasons now. It's kind of stale. I can only wonder, how good or not good the ratings will be. I know I'll give it a chance. I'll definitely give the first episode a chance. I gotta wonder how many MMA fans are gonna just maybe get the first, second episode a chance and then tune out. It could be a Brock Lesnar situation. Brock Lesnar was announced as a coach for The Ultimate Fighter against Junior Dos Santos. Turned out it was pretty boring. There was nothing there. Obviously, they don't have any type of chemistry in the sense that, like Frank Mir was a foil to Brock Lesnar, and that can really be brought out in the show. It looks like that Sonnen can be a foil to Jones. So, in that sense, it could be like Evans versus Rampage. Of course, that one had Kimbo Slice on it as well. Then the only thing is, it's the same show, though, It's... These guys, they're not that great of fighters. It's just a lot of the same format. We're in the house, and it's trying to reality television. They deprive them of television, computers, and just any real outside contact, and stuff happens in the house. So I guess in the sense they're kind of saving it from life support. So assuming that The Ultimate Fighter does do really well in ratings, it's well, what about next season? I mean, you don't have too many Joneses and Sonnens to give an alternate a coaching spot. Usually I'm against champions coaching The Ultimate Fighter because of how it holds up the division, but in this case, Jon Jones has that injury from the armbar from Vitor Belfort. So he's going to be injured anyway, so you're not really holding anything up. And yeah, I guess the next thing I want to talk about is the media, pretty much. I guess I'll start with how some of the responses from media that I don't particularly like or find condescending. Here's Mike Whitman. He's a news editor from Sherdog. He says, "I honestly think people are overreacting about this whole thing. If you think this sport has been about anything other than making money since its introduction to the United States as a pay-per-view infomercial for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, then you must not have been paying attention." Once again, I've actually seen that type of, criticism towards MMA fans from some MMA media. Other media members are a lot more sensible. But that one right there really goes to show this, I can't really describe if it's, elitist attitude, or it's just, it definitely is a condescending attitude. One, I don't think people are overreacting here. You know, there's rightful criticism here. It's a sport that, or maybe in his case, entertainment that requires people to put money down. So yeah, it kind of has some effect on us MMA fans financially. The other problem is this idea of like, well, throughout this whole time that the UFC's been all about making money. The only problem is it's kind of a half-truth. Yeah, they brought in Kimbo Slice for ratings. They've had James Toney. Lesnar fought Randy Couture in his fourth pro MMA fight. The thing that gets kind of contentious is it's not as consistent as it seems. For example, like Dana White was asked if Nick Diaz will get an immediate title shot against like the winner of GSP versus Carlos Condit. He said no, he'll get one more fight. Once again, if you're really about just making money, then you would have it so Nick Diaz gets the immediate title shot. I would pay money to see GSP versus Nick Diaz. However, giving Nick Diaz one more fight to like kind of goes back to just him deserving it. Chuck Liddell never fought for a title after UFC 171. Their biggest star, like ever, that really helped them bring them to now, never really got a title shot after he lost to Quentin Rampage Jackson. Okay, the UFC would be making money if they gave Chuck Liddell multiple title shots. I mean, that's really, he's such a well-known name, He was known outside of just the UFC fan base. Michael Bisping. Why is it taking so long for one of the more remarkable stars, Michael Bisping, to get a title shot against Anderson Silva? He's been there long enough. He's marketable. He can help sell a fight. Well, he beat Stan, and I think if Michael Bisping got a title shot now, I don't think too many people mind, because what a lot of people were criticizing Michael Bisping was he never beat that top 10 guy. Now he beat Brian Stan. He'd probably get one more fight in there, but otherwise, it's this idea of like, oh, well, they're about making money. No, they haven't set that utter precedent. It's not a consistent thing. Chael Sonnen did not get an immediate rematch against Anderson Silva. He had to beat Brian Stan and Michael Bisping before getting the rematch. So that's why this whole point of like, oh yeah, they just do things, why are you overreacting? They've always done stuff just to make money. No, that's not necessarily true though. If that were the case, then the most marketable fighters would be getting title shots that are undeserved. Even guys like Uriah Faber, yeah, he gets a lot of title shots, but he is beating good guys to get these title shots most of the time. I mean, his last title shot, what did he beat? Like Brian Bowles, if I'm not mistaken, to fight Burrell. And before he fought Dominic Cruz, he fought Eddie Wineland. Top 10 guys. He's fighting the guys that you need to beat to be a perceived deserved title contender. So even guys like him, he gets a lot of title shots, but for the most part he does beat really good guys, and it doesn't feel like it's totally undeserved because he's beating the appropriate guys. That's why I really don't look. I don't feel it's a strong point to just say, oh, the UFC is all about making money, and this fight just kind of shows that. Why are MMA fans overreacting here. It's like, well, geez, Sonnen doesn't deserve the title shot. I mean, it's really simple. There are other options here. You can give him Dan Henderson. You can give him the winner of Shogun versus Gustafsson. You can even go with the Machida rematch. I don't think too many people will be angry about a rematch with Machida. So yeah, those are pretty much, that's like the media, and that's the type of opinion that I'm not very fond of, because it comes off really condescending. Like, MMA fans are they're just complaining about it, and overreacting. It's like, no, we're voicing pretty it's pretty logical. The UFC hasn't really set a consistent precedent for undeserved title shots. We've seen it, but it's not, while it does exist, it's not common enough to be like, another day in the office. It's, there's a reason why people complain about it. Dave Doyle from MMA Fighting said, if you're going to pontificate righteous indignation over the notion MMA is a pure sport and insists a fighter has to work his way through the division to earn a title shot, then you have to show consistency in your position. You can't have it both ways based on whether you personally like one fighter and not another. Either someone earned their title shot in their division or they didn't. Doyle then proceeded to use the evidence of Frank Edgar fighting Jose Aldo and Tim Sylvia fighting Randy Couture. And there is, I don't feel it's a salient point. This point was actually very much fired upon. For one, a lot of situations for these type of title shots aren't the same. If you look at Tim Sylvia during the time he was champion when Randy fought him, there really wasn't anyone in the heavyweight division that really deserved it. I think what I was reading is like Brandon Vera beat Frank Mir and he should have got it, but then he had that contract dispute. Gonzaga was a relative unknown, and I believe Tim Sylvia was coming off to win, I think the second or third win, or second or third fight over Andrei Arlovsky. I mean, there really wasn't anyone there. The other thing, if you go with like Frank Edgar or Randy Couture, they are former champions. They have proven to be able to fight and beat other champions. Chael Sonnen, besides Paulo Filho maybe, and the WEC, hasn't shown that. He can't seem to really get over that final hump, pretty much. Frank Edgar versus Jose Aldo. Frank Edgar took that fight on short notice because Eric Koch pulled out, or if I'm not mistaken, Eric Koch pulled out. Once again, Frank Edgar, former champion. I don't think there's really, and also, I mean, you can't really, I think Korean Zombie has surgery. Lamas is relatively unknown still. Poirier just lost. I guess you can maybe get to Eric Koch. I know as of right now, Ricardo Lamas is going to fight Eric Koch. And even that fight was a bit contentious in itself. Eric Koch was coming off a win over Jonathan Brookins. Never really beat a top 10 guy. So it's not, once again, it's not exactly a case where, like, they had a lot of contenders. There really aren't any real contenders here. And a lot of people did want to see Frankie Edgar versus Jose Aldo. Frankie Edgar is a former champion in a higher weight class. It's a fight a lot of people wanted to see. And then there's like Brock Lesnar, Randy Couture. A lot of people, even to this day, still actually fight that. Are not fond of that decision. Obviously, Lesnar kept winning fights against good people after that. Frank Mir, Shea Carwin, at the very least, Brock Lesnar beat Heath Herring, another heavyweight to get his title shot. So it's definitely not the same as this. I don't think you can really argue consistency here because they're not the same situation. Like I said, there are contenders for Jon Jones right now. Sonnen hasn't beaten anyone at 205 in a very long time. He hasn't even fought the division in a very long time. Vitor got a shot against Jones. A lot of people are complaining about that too. It's like, what? It's just kind of weird. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool, but he doesn't deserve it. So yeah, there's some points here that I definitely don't agree with. I definitely think it's a bit condescending to MMA fans. Of course, other writers are a little more level-headed about it, I guess. Like Tim Burke from Ellie Elbow said that booking stuff like this just makes the UFC look less sporting and more about profit every day. There are a pack of light heavyweight fighters out there that deserves an opportunity to compete for the title in their own division. Sure, some of them have already had their chance and failed. But why does a mounty middleweight who is coming off a bad loss get a title shot in a division he hasn't competed in since 2006? I understand that it is business first and foremost, but spending 6 months building a non-competitive title fight between these two seems like pure desperation to me. And then he goes on and he finally says, if this isn't what's known as hotshot booking, I don't know what it is. I largely agree with that point. It's one thing that's really that he mentioned that I'd like to just go on is like the stylistic matchup between Jones and Sonnen. It's a terrible style matchup. I mean, seriously, I've heard some arguments out there that I'd rather see Sonnen rather than Henderson because I don't see Dan Henderson having a chance. I think Sonnen has a better chance against Jones than Dan Henderson. Therefore, I'd rather see Jones versus Sonnen. Well, once again, at least with Dan Henderson, he beat 4 guys before in 205 and above to get this shot against Jon Jones. And like I said, if it were up to me, I think I'd just give the title shot to Dan Henderson. Really. Stylistically, though, yeah, not a good matchup. Jones, much taller, is going to be the much bigger fighter. Sonnen does have that really aggressive and relentless type of takedowns. His striking isn't that great. I think Jones can definitely use his length. Jones has fought, wrestled boxers before. Rashad Evans, Ryan Bader, and he beat them, pretty one-sidedly. The thing with Jones, I can see Jones getting takedowns on Sonnen and just beating them up from the top. Sonnen's avenue to victory is usually the same. Takedown, stay busy, top control. Could he do that to Jones? Maybe get the takedown. I don't know. He has to shoot in from pretty far away. And I don't think Sonnen's beating Jones on the stand up. It's not a good stylistic matchup for Chael Sonnen. To me, actually, I think Dan Henderson's about. At least Dan Henderson has the right hand. Gustafsson would be a cool matchup for Jones. I'd like to see how Jones handles someone that's taller than him. A second Machida fight, I think, would be very interesting stylistically. A lot of people argue that Machida got the first round on Jones. He just has a tough style for just about anyone. Let's see. There's other opinions that I can agree with because they're not they're not talking down to anyone. And KJ Gold from Bloody Elbow, he argued how great the next season of the Ultimate Fighter will be. And if handled correctly, the UFC can build to a must-see showdown between champion Jon Jones and challenger Chael Sonnen. He still stands by that opinion, but not because of any meaningful or long-term benefit the show and the fight will have for MMA, because it's a solid bit of entertainment that can be easily enjoyed for what it is in isolation. Fair opinion, fair enough. I'm definitely not opposed to that. If you're looking at it from just a pure entertainment standpoint, yeah, it can be a lot of fun. Chael Sonnen, like I said, this guy can definitely talk the talk. As far as beating champions, though, he can't really walk the walk. I like the guy. I actually like the guy. I've had a couple times. I've actually had to defend the guy a couple times because there are a couple MMA fans that feel that he never deserved to fight Anderson Silva, and the only guys he beaten are bums. I've had to defend the guy a couple times myself, so I like the guy. I don't think he has anything for Jones, personally. But finally, Luke Thomas, he had a really good article on MMA fighting that brought up some really good points. What he had to say is what's done is done. What are the long-term and short-term benefits for this fight? And there are a couple, Let's see. One thing I really liked, because he says something that really defends MMA fans. He said, in addition to booking Jones versus Sonnen, they're promoting fight cards with one meaningful bout at the top, filler followed by filler. The media and fans who push back against cynical matchmaking serve as the conscience of the sport. It is a hardline resistance that serve as a helpful reminder to promoters that blatant cash grabs or questionable matchmaking will only be tolerated in limited amounts. He goes on, and what he says is, ultimately, though, fans and media should also be honest with themselves. The sky is not falling. I agree with that. He actually brought up the point of that Jon Jones is a star, but he may have a foil in Chael Sonnen that can really put him over, even to a bigger star. So that's good. So that makes sense. I do agree with the point that the sky is not falling. At the end of the day, what's done is done. Jones versus Sonnen, outside of injury or something else, is going to happen. They're going to coach against each other in the Ultimate Fighter, and the only thing you can really do about it is either watch it or don't watch it. Really, if you don't like it, then you can express your displeasure by not watching it and not getting the pay-per-view or something. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of it, but I gotta be realistic. I'll probably order the pay-per-view. I might catch an episode of The Ultimate Fighter to see, what it's all about. But yeah, it's one thing he said here, that this can only be tolerated in limited amounts. And that's really goes against what others have said, that they're about anything other than making money. No, it's in a case like this, they're just trying to make money and to save the Ultimate Fighter, but fans will only tolerate it for so much. It's not something they should do consistently. If it's not a good idea. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the MMA discussion regarding Jones versus Sonnen. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for you guys. Thanks.